That one's good. So yeah, I think so. I think it's great. What's up, folks? It is Monday night on a rare Monday night that I end up joining and or coming on, but I'd like to thank you, the viewers, the listeners, and I do appreciate everyone coming on. And for some reason, let me get rid of something here because I don't know why. Hopefully that'll take it away. So, anyways, thank you guys for coming on, jumping on with me. I do appreciate it. And tonight we do have on Mrs. Fayetteville International 2020. Katyi Gutierrez is with us this evening, the ambassador of the Fayetteville Stingers. So she'll talk about not only the position she has with Fayetteville Stingers, which brings her within the community, and being, I would assume, just assuming here, when you are involved with the pageant, of course, one of the bigger things they want you to do is to be involved within the community. So I do appreciate Katyi taking the time tonight. I know it might be a later broadcast for some folks, but as always, we like to welcome the folks over on the West Coast to tune in, along with the people overseas, internationally, in Spain, Africa, everywhere around the world. We do appreciate you guys always tuning in and coming on live with us, as well as Tampa Joe's. We thank all the Eagles fans who showed up yesterday. I do appreciate it. Mike Goodwin also extending his sponsorship with me, so I can't thank Mike Goodwin enough. And don't forget, in 2 weeks, as you know, the NFC Championship game was won by our Philadelphia Eagles. You guys can end up joining us at the Super Bowl party out there in Tampa, Florida. So that should be a lot of fun coming up here in 2 weeks. There'll be more to follow. Stay tuned to Tampa Joe's Facebook page, along with us as well over on Broad Street South. So with that being said, I'd like to thank everyone once again for tuning in. We should have a great night with Katyi. And with all that being said, I am Angel Martinez for Broad Street South and Sports Radio 102.9. Welcome, and let's enjoy the night. And as I said here on the other side, we do have Katyi on with us. And as soon as I flip the switch here, we will get to see Katyi. Katyi, first of all,
Hey,
thank you for joining me. I do appreciate it. And by the way, congratulations on being Mrs. Fayetteville International 2023.
thank you. Thank you. It is an honor. I am very pleased to be able to represent the community and share a little bit of information on my platform and just meet all kinds of amazing people. It's been such a great journey so far, both in the Fayetteville and North Carolina community and outside of it as well.
Well, I would imagine. Well, number one, let me dive back into the pageant first before we get into the Stingers. What made you? Because I know everyone has different avenues, different roads they like to take in life, and like to. Some people pursue different kind of dreams, but as far as for the pageant, what pursued you? And and let me not forget as well. Thank you for also being Mrs. Fort Bragg, because that, to me, as a former soldier of the United States Army, I do appreciate people who not only get involved with Fort Bragg, but also, for the position that you were in. But as far as for the pageant, what, I guess, inspired you to become or to be involved with the pageant?
It's kind of it was just a weird little itch that I had. I had been in my career for almost 15 years, and I felt like I needed to be doing more. I think we're all put here, to help one another, and I felt like I wanted to help people. And foster kids, really, it is something that pulls on my heartstrings. My mom was actually a foster, and my grandparents adopted her. And, right now, there are currently, just in the state of North Carolina, 12,000 children that are in foster care, which is insane to think about, these kids that aren't with their families. So kind of trying to be a voice for them. And whenever you do represent a community, more doors are opened, and you have more opportunities to speak to a larger audience. So that's kind of why I went this route. I stopped working at my 9 to 5, which I am now working at a different one for a magazine here in Fayetteville, which has worked out perfectly. But, I just really wanted to pursue what I felt God, was calling me to do.
Well, that's first of all, thank you because again, when you talk about the foster kids, everybody knows for some people, and I guess it's a shame for some folks that aren't able to have children. Of course, they try to go through adoption, they try to go through foster agencies to see what they can possibly do to be able to get the paperwork through so they're able to at least have a child. I'm pretty sure as their dream of having a home is also having children as well. The great thing is that there are agencies and there are avenues that people can adopt because it's the hardest thing to see. And we know in this society of ours, you have the choice of life and what you choose to do with your life. But we hope that if someone just says, you know what, it's time to give birth, maybe it wasn't for me, but to go through that natural birth and just go through an advocacy, let them know that hey, by the way, I thought I was ready for it. I may not be, but I don't want to do anything any different than anyone has done in the past. Let me pass on a child to you so they can have a great home. So I'm really happy, at least, that you are working with foster kids because it makes a world of a difference to a lot of people who may not had the opportunity of doing so. And we know that we see families growing. We've seen some families, they've had 10 of their own children and still adopt 10 other ones just to make their family even bigger. So kudos to you for what you're doing because I'm pretty sure if for you it's something big. And I do believe if I remember correctly, looking at as far as your Instagram, I believe you do have a child of your own.
I have three.
Oh boy.
I have three. It feels like 30. So my oldest is my son. He is 13. He just turned 13, which is wild to me that I have a teenager because even thinking back to when I was pregnant with him, I'm thinking, this is just not a good idea. It's not a good idea. I don't know what I'm going to do. But my oldest is my son. He's 13. My daughter, my second child, is 10. And then my littlest one is 5.5, almost, she'll be 6 in May.
It's a tough thing, right? Because as you said, you're 13-year-old and you start looking back at life. And by no means, you don't have to say your age. But when it comes, you go back 13 years, and it's true. There's a lot of us that we've seen the choices that we make. And Rick, I'll get to Rick. Mark is a great friend of the show. Great hanging out with him on this past Sunday. But it's funny how we look back at the choices that we make. And you probably thought, just like you said, 13 years ago, was it the right thing to do at the time? Did it all happen for a reason? But everything happens for a reason. Now you're blessed with two other children, which
Yeah.
is great for you, other than keeping you crazy busy, I would assume now with your 9 to 5 job, with the pageantry, and also with the Fayetteville Stingers. So how do you balance it all out? And then what time do you have for yourself?
Um, I don't know that I would say any of it's balanced. Um, that would just not be true to say that, I've got it all figured out because I don't. But I think that my kids are amazing. They're super supportive of me. My husband's amazing. He's very supportive. My whole family really stepped up and showed me that, during this last year, and have helped me through things that I didn't know that would ever happen to me, and so having a good support system, being very strong-willed and stubborn, as some people might like to say, I get
Right.
things done. As far as time to myself, my favorite time to myself, and it always has been, because it's as a mom, as a working mom, it's often the only time you get is when you're driving to and from work. So I just, crank up my trap music. I'm not listening to Encanto or whatever. I just, crank up my music, blast it, kind of decompress before and after work. And then I also wake up before my kids do so I can have coffee in a dark, silent house.
Now, being the dork that I am, because I do it a bunch of times myself, I crank up the music. A lot of times in the car, I'll do a car dance because what else do you do to and from work a lot of times. And then there's moments that you have to crank it up because depending on how tired you are, for me, because of my job I have throughout the day, then at nighttime when I'm in the studio, getting up extra early to work in the studio and invites and everything else, does it seem weird, I guess, if you see someone in the next car and you can tell it's like their favorite song or something else, and the windows might be up, but you just see them dancing? Does that seem weird, or is that like a normal thing, I guess, for those of us who
No,
like to dance in cars?
I will hype them up all day, every day. I will hype them up. Do
It's the
it.
best part.
Yeah. Yeah, no. If people are enjoying themselves, you hype those people up. Don't give them a dirty look. I saw someone eating a taco from Taco Bell and she was after it and like, get it because I'm the same way, driving with my knee, trying to put fire sauce on there. I get it. So I am all for hyping people up when they're enjoying their moment.
You have to. Life is too short, and you have to enjoy every single moment you possibly can. And it's the fun part. It's just fun in nature. I mean, there's times before I moved down here to Tampa, Florida, when I was in Philly, and I used to do my sports report outside. A lot of people look at me like, "Why is he talking to his phone? And who's he talking to?" And it's just because that's how things got started. And you got to start at one place or another. And then some people kind of be like, "Oh, that guy." And then eventually what happens is they approach you like, "So who do you do this for?" And so that's what we need, kind of more of an understanding of seeing how people do things without kind of questioning or wondering like, all right, so either A, what's their motive, or are they crazy or something else? Don't just ask. See what's going on. Be polite about it. Don't get me wrong, but ask because that's the best thing. But Rick had a couple questions. First of all, he had a comment because he said we need more people like you in this world. And also followed up with, he said, what were the qualifications for becoming Mrs. Fayetteville?
Um, oh man. So I don't have the whole list in front of me. You need to be a resident of the state of North Carolina and the city, which I have been now for 2.5 years. It'll be 3 years. I moved up from Savannah, Georgia. You need to be married. I don't remember the other ones, and this is terrible. I think this might be the brain surgery talking because I cannot remember them, and I know my pageant director is like, "How do you not know these?" But yeah, I mean, my pageant director has made it such a great, seamless experience for me, and the current Mrs. International, Sandy, has been so supportive. She's actually from Florida. She was Mrs.
Nice.
Florida International, and now she's Mrs. International. So as there's different tiers, there's, preteen, teen, Miss, and Mrs. There's also a Ms. and ambassadors. They all have different qualifications, but you're just looking for someone who has something that they're passionate about. They fall within that age range. They live in that state, in that city, and they're ready to compete.
Oh, nice. Well, I have one more question for us. Like you were talking about the pageantry, but Rick follows up with, in case you haven't heard, obviously the Eagles ended up winning 31-7 yesterday, but he would like to know, how do you pronounce Purdy? Obviously the San Fran quarterback.
Oh, it's Purdy.
I think maybe because he saw your Go Big Red shirt, so he's probably thinking the Hoosiers say something completely different than what we do. So
No, that game was nuts too. That fight in that Eagles game.
yeah, yeah. Trent Williams apparently, from a lot of the comments, what they were told, apparently he doesn't play around. From former players, he said he's just, once he gets agitated and or aggravated, I guess that's something he does. But we'll see, because the NFL hasn't handed down fines either from yesterday, and they know the Eagles are playing the Super Bowl, so I think they don't want to suspend anybody. But the fines, I would imagine they're probably going to be in the six figures for both teams.
Probably. Well, it doesn't matter to them.
Now,
Fines are fines.
yeah, that they are. But now you talked about before too, as far as with the pageants. So when you go international pageants, and again, I'm sorry if I don't felt too much, but you also then have the opportunity of going for Miss America, or is
No,
it for Miss
so
Universe?
the Miss America program is totally separate.
Okay.
They don't have a Mrs. division. There are so many different pageant platforms. There's the International, there's the United World, there's the Miss America pageant system, which I have over the last about 6 months, got to know Carolyn Martin, who is Miss North Carolina, and she competed this year at Miss America so well. My youngest daughter is obsessed with her. She is just like obsessed with her. We were at a Fayetteville Woodpeckers game throwing out first pitches together. And my daughter just attached to Carolyn. She loves her. We absolutely think the world of her.
Well, before we get into some Hoosiers talk, because again, basketball now being part of you, because, and I would assume now, because I don't want to make an idiot of myself, to put it in most polite terms, but I'm assuming then you are an alum from Indiana University?
Yeah, so my whole family, except for my one cousin, Greta, who went to Purdue, everyone's IU, Bloomington, all the way. It's just live by this, die by this, all IU, all the time.
So now I can imagine then the rivalry, as you said, because a great friend of mine, Chris, which we call each other brothers because we've known each other for years. His wife went to Purdue as well. Now, I personally don't get to see the experience of all these collegiate games. How crazy was it between both universities when you guys ended up facing each other?
It's nuts. It's absolutely nuts. The rivalry is crazy. I personally hate going to games in West Lafayette because I think it smells up there by Purdue. It might be the river, it might just be the school. I don't know. Who am I to say? But, coming to whenever an opposing team, be it Purdue or, some non-conference team comes into Assembly Hall, they need to know, like, they had even said this is the Carnegie Hall of college basketball. This is where you come to play. This is where college basketball lives. And it gets loud. It gets crazy. And anyone in there loves their Hoosiers. And when you've got the two teams that close together, it can get a little rowdy. It can get a little rowdy for sure. I don't think I've seen anything, though, nearly as crazy as the buzzer beater against UK, though. That was probably one of the all-time greatest moments ever.
It's funny because now, for those who may or may not know, Dr. Naismith, who started basketball out there in Springfield, Massachusetts, where it started with basically a peach basket, and ended up creating basketball. But somehow or another, I still try to get the two and two together here because it was out in Massachusetts when he had the first game was played, but then somehow or another it morphed and transitioned over to Indiana because most people know that Indiana is the heart of basketball. Most products that have come out of the NBA you can go back from the junior high level to the high school level and obviously in the college, but a lot of it has come through Indiana. One coach you guys had in particular that was an absolute maniac.
On my wall.
But but it's funny because he was loved or hated. But you got to obviously I didn't play for the man. I would imagine for other people who went nuts for him. But a lot of people had stated that obviously McKnight had one factor that was just to play, and he tried to make the best out of you. But unfortunately, he had a temper. Some guys said they were able to deal with it. Some guys said that they absolutely loved it because they were able to encourage them and just make them play harder. And God bless him because he's no longer with us. But if I guess if anybody had the heart and soul of Indiana, obviously it would be him. But not only that, it's just that the product that comes out of Indiana each and every year, it continues to get better and better. And so you would think with the rich history behind Indiana all these years, it would end up slightly going away, but it doesn't go away. Now, for me, I'll be up there come this week only because of the TBL draft combine. So it should be really interesting to see because I'm dying to see the facility itself for the NCAA. Where the players end up going when they get ready to go to enter the NBA draft. So I just want to get a rich feeling, the history behind what happens in Indiana and understand completely like what's it like to come through the ranks, be able to go up, into Indy, try out for a team, whether it be in the NBA, the G League, for the TBL, obviously for us. But it's got to be something you experienced it again as a university alum. It's got to be something so gratifying. And even if any of your friends made it into the NBA, or that guys obviously had played on the NCAA level, it has to be. I would guess maybe a nostalgic or historical feeling. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy.
No, I mean, and the guys that I know who have become very successful are all great people. And Coach Knight, although he may have had a temper, I have a photo of him throwing the chair hanging on my wall. I think it's one of the greatest moments ever in basketball. Anywhere you go in Bloomington, you'll find pictures of a tipped over chair, and it's the energy around it and the passion. And yes, they talk about his temper, but look at McCaffrey out at Iowa. You've got to look at coaches now versus 30, 35 years ago. So looking at that same amount of temper, I don't know that it's necessarily temper. It's more of igniting a passion in your team. And, one of the arguably greatest college coaches, Coach K from Duke, even though I am not a fan of that school whatsoever, because they have, caused us some trouble a time or two. But, I was in the hospital back in May up at Duke University, and, I was giving the doctors, who are saving my life a hard time about Duke. And, I said, well, your coach is only good because he played for the original Coach K, which is Coach Knight when he was at West Point. Just such a legacy, such a legacy.
Listen, and I think if you look at it today, again, a completely different society when we saw when Coach Knight came through, and we've heard the stories. We've heard players that they said they got choked, other players that got pushed, other players that got shoved. Would it happen today? Of course not, because the coach would be gone. It was a whole different era. And I guess some of us who end up coming through that era, again, we just saw a lot of fight within them. And I'm pretty sure I'll get an email or a message from someone saying, well, how you view it is completely different from other people than are viewing it. I enjoyed it only because he did. I mean, the man, he wouldn't have made as Indiana as successful, the Hoosiers alone, if it wasn't for what he had done for the school. And I know it just didn't end well for him, unfortunately, at the very end. I know they try to make amends prior, after he was gone. But to me, it was just, it was a minute too late to try to thank the man who may not have been the most best human, I guess to put it, in best terms. But he did bring the Hoosiers. I mean, every single player that came out of there, minus a couple that maybe had just had a problem, but he did the best he possibly could for that university.
He did amazing things. And I know, from speaking to players who played for him, that he demanded the best out of them. He saw something in them that they didn't see, and he would pull it out of them. Yeah, of course, there were difficult conversations, and now those are things that wouldn't be acceptable. But they also weren't handing out participation trophies 35 years ago to everyone. So we're in a completely different society. I'm sure I'm going to get some messages about that one too. But it's very different now. And I hope to see one day, they'll name Assembly Hall after him, because it's really the house that Knight built. And
listen, you're right, because I say it all the time as well. If you're going to play a sport, whatever you're going to do, right, you're going to achieve. The boss is never going to walk in. Well, and then again, hold on. Let me take that back. Because some places you go to, sometimes the person who does the least ends up with the most. I don't know how in the world that happens in life, but unfortunately it does happen. But when it comes to sports, it's the same way. With me, when I played baseball when I was younger, coach was always on top of you. Here's what you do. Here's where you need to be. Here's where you're going to get to that level if you can. If you're fortunate enough to go to college, hey, even better, because then maybe you can pursue your dreams. But there was no participation trophies. You got yelled at. You got thrown on the bench. It's just the way it was. And if you weren't good enough, coach would tell you, to the point either he just would embarrass you and you would put your head down, but either you came out strong the next game and then
You
you end up
didn't
doing better
play,
throughout the season.
or
But
you just sat on the bench and you didn't play.
no, that was it. But now it's completely different. It's like, I'm sorry. So little Joey, here you go, because I know you tried your best, or here's your trophy. It doesn't work that way. And at least in my book, it doesn't work that way. But again, different society, and I'm pretty sure I'll get messages about that as well. But it is what it is. It's the truth. So for those who don't like it, I don't know what to say. It's just the way it is. Everything you do in this life, you work hard for it. And if you don't work hard for it, or if you have instant overnight success, you might want to question yourself, how did I go overnight to becoming, from being nothing to all of a sudden over here without me doing anything whatsoever? So it's interesting how life works. But the other thing I want to bring up as well, obviously with the basketball league and the Fayetteville Stingers. Now, interesting enough, which I ended up speaking to Ken Bishop earlier, about I would say about 2-3 months ago. One of my very first guests from the TBL, an amazing man, so much fun to talk to. We had a great time on the show. But I would like to know, was it Ken that reached out, or was it Ray, the general manager? How did you guys end up
I'm
bringing this
trying
all
to
together?
remember. I was thinking about that earlier, and I'm pretty sure it was Ken, someone through their social media had, and then I sent an email to Ray. And then we just kind of hit things off from there. I was super excited that they're bringing basketball here because it's just, high school, or I have to go up to Durham and watch teams that I'm not particularly fond of play. IU, we played UNC and just completely smashed them, obliterated them. It was a great game. So I'm excited to see some really great talent here closer to me.
The funny thing, as you talk about that, there's teams, I was like UNC. First of all, the down at the not the Raleigh Triangle. What's the there's not the Raleigh Triangle. What do they call it? There's a because there's the three areas.
No,
Raleigh,
it's the
North Carolina.
triangle. So it's
And is it?
Durham, Chapel Hill, and Raleigh. Yeah.
That's what it is. Okay, so I missed one of the two, but so Chapel Hill, obviously the. So for me, I've been the only team that I strayed away from when I lived in Philly, even though I could have been a fan of Temple, but I did like Coach K and Duke. I ended up going to a Duke game, which I was completely blown away, not because of Coach K. When I went inside Cameron Field, I would expect something because it looks so big on TV, and when you walk in, it's small. So it really kind of throws you off. But I will say, if I guess if I had the opportunity, would I have gone to Duke? Probably not. I've gone to Penn State because I love Penn State football. But it was interesting to me going down there, visiting the campus, going to a game. I can see why a lot of people in the area couldn't stand Coach K, let alone Duke. But I guess it made sense for me as well because you have the Tar Heels. Obviously, Michael Jordan came from there as well. So it was just there's a lot of rich basketball environment as well within the triangle. I couldn't compare it against Indiana, but I was able to come close, maybe second, third. But it's just from the college campuses that are down there. And again, we've seen greats coming out of from Chapel Hill. We've seen a lot of guys coming out from Duke. So you're in a great environment, and like you said, I'm pretty sure in some schools that you don't want to attend because of your alum to Indiana. But it's got to be exciting at the same time as well for you, being the ambassador and then getting to travel to these different areas with them to see what's going on.
It is. And, I hate on Duke so hard. So hard. But, Coach K, the support that he gets from the community is amazing. Hearing at his last home game, last season, just hearing about how his family supported him, how his wife supported him when he was deployed to Korea. And she hid in a closet at the DMZ with their newborn infant in a suitcase. And I was thinking, well, DODIG is going to be calling him in the morning about this. Like, hey, we saw you on TV last night. We know this was 30 years ago, but this goes against Army protocol. But just hearing the dedication that his family, gave him, and it's amazing. And it kind of comes back to, you asking me how I balance everything, and you have to have a support system.
Listen, Coach K, an amazing individual. I mean, for what he's done for his kids, for that organization, it's completely incredible what Coach K has done. And I didn't want to see him retire. Every great legend, obviously, at one point or another, has to step down. It's just it's the nature of the game. I mean, you don't do so much, and once you get to a certain point when it's not fun anymore. And I say to the guys on my show, and ironically, Dylan, uh, from my what I call my Tampa correspondent, but now he's with the Toronto Blue Jays. But Dylan, he understands. When things are no longer fun, that's when you really have to kind of check and see like what's going on. Why is this not fun anymore? If it's in your own personal life, it's within a job. When it's not fun anymore, that's when you do have to step away because then you have to make that assertive change in your life to say, what can I do differently here? But Dylan asked the question, he says, do you feel that the game of basketball in the state of North Carolina is played with more passion if hold on, Dylan, I screwed you up here. If you will, because of the basketball history than other states. All right. So what I think he's saying is it different from the state of North Carolina compared to where you were in Indiana?
Yeah. As far as being played with more passion, Dylan, you gotta go to a Hoosiers game. You are not gonna see any richer passion than that. I went to a game with my husband and he had joked, we're sitting down there. Oh, if I get upset, can I throw a chair across the court? And I said, well, no, they're chained to the court. He laughed. I said, look under your seat. They are legitimately chained to the court. You can't throw them. Like there is so much passion. Everyone comes out. Indiana's where it's at. There is a lot of passion, definitely here for sure as well. UNC, they one of my great friends who owns a restaurant here loves UNC, and even though I'm a hard time about it, and seeing all these kids come out and camp out at Camp K for days to get a chance to get their tickets or to go into the game, there is a ton of passion and a ton of support behind their school, which is refreshing to see because I have lived everywhere from Cleveland, Ohio, all the way out to Honolulu. And aside from Indiana, I've not really seen a huge following quite like that. So yeah, they definitely do have quite a bit of passion here. Do I think it's because of how big basketball was in other states? No, I think it's because of Michael Jordan and because of Coach K.
You talk about as far as your husband, when experiencing through you being a Hoosiers fan, did your husband have his own favorite college team, or is he just pretty much followed what you followed?
He doesn't care. Doesn't care about basketball, had really never watched college basketball. He is a West Pointer, so their athletic teams they have one job. They have to win one game, and that's against the Navy. That's it.
Yeah.
So, had never experienced anything like it before. The first game, I was there with my aunt, and she was loud. I was loud. I looked at him. I said, I told you it's not just me that's crazy and screaming at the other team to sit down and shut up when we're at the free throw line. It's a genetic thing, clearly. So he had never really experienced that kind of, Hoosier hysteria, if you will.
No, but I think everybody, well, most people in their families, right, a lot of us are competitive, and I think even if you pick something differently. So my sister and I were born and raised in Philly. She moved to, we both actually moved to Massachusetts. She decided to stay there. Became a Patriots fan, became a Yankees fan. And so I tease her all the time about it because I said, what happened to our Eagles and Phillies, everything else? And even though yesterday she said, hey, brother, thanks, or, congratulations, you guys are going to the Super Bowl. And she says, my hometown is being represented there. So when the Eagles end up making it to the Super Bowl, she will root for them because then it comes back. But it's the funniest thing ever because I told her, when did you become a Yankees fan? He said, no, I was a Yankees fan when we were younger. It's like you were a Phillies fan. But it's okay. I don't hold it against her. But I tease her all the time. Good
I
thing
don't
that
think it should work like that. If she jumped ship, listen, there were so many Indiana fans who were going off on Instagram on these kids, like going off on our starting lineup that they had dropped out of the AP and talking about the triangle. And I was so sick of seeing it. And, and today, the AP came out. Guess who's back? IU's back. Like, we're back on the AP top 25. They're at number 21. They're going to keep climbing. But all of those fans who jump ship, no, you jump ship. Stay out there in the water. Go find a new team. Like, they don't want you. The Eagles don't want her back as a fan. The Patriots can have her. That's not how it works. You pick your team and you ride or die with them. Period.
Yeah. What? Because you have the problem is you have people so almost like bringing participation trophies back in the conversation. But you have ring chasers. You have some people they give up on their team and they figure like, oh, you know what? Nah, I wasn't a fan of them. I'll go somewhere else. Now, for me, the one thing I will admit is being down here in Tampa, it's a lot of fun to follow the Lightning. Follow them when I was even in Philadelphia because they were a good expansion franchise team, and Philly, we're all about being underdogs. And Tampa's fortunate, obviously, to win back-to-back Stanley Cups. For my Flyers, which drive me absolutely nuts, is that the organization does no longer believe in the players and or John Tortorella for that matter, because he's ready to just jump ship because he signed on for 1 year, and I don't think John understood what was coming behind all that mess that he's got to deal with. The only thing the Flyers care about, and again, I know I'm going to get a message from this, is because of their mascot, Gritty. That's it. That's the only reason why the Flyers even exist, is because of that goofy mascot. But I have not followed the Flyers as much as I used to before, just because of that, because you have to believe in your organization. You got Ed Snyder, God bless him, did a lot for the team, did a lot for the city. The Sun, not as much. And until the Flyers get back to where they used to be, hard grinding, Broad Street bullies, when they were actually a worthy team, then I'll think about as far as talking to them, all over again. But for now, I'm enjoying the ride here with Tampa. It's been a lot of fun. Don't get me wrong, but it's still die hard no matter what back home. Just Duke. Duke is my only thing where I stray away from because that's been my college team for years, even without Coach K. But that's a whole different story for a whole different show for a whole different time. It's just it's fun. It's fun to talk about rivalries and different things. But the one thing I also noticed, kind of steering away a little bit here from basketball, along with what you're doing, coming up on April 20th, you have a Cape Fear with Cape Fear Valley Health, and you guys are doing a City Views Ladies Night Out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so on April 20th, and I believe the link is in my Instagram, the magazine that I work for, the publication City View, we are actually hosting the third annual Ladies Night Out. Really excited to do this. Cape Fear is one of our big sponsors. I also have Mercedes-Benz coming out. It's going to be, a night of wine and snacks and shopping and just pretty much a great time for women to get out of the house, go out with their girlfriends, and support a good cause. We're trying to get some stuff together for a silent auction as well. It should be a lot of fun. I'm very excited about it. It'll be a lot of fun. Hopefully the weather is normal by then because half of it's outside. So you never know. It's kind of like Indiana weather. Some days it's cold, some days it's just all over the place. But we are very excited. This one is going to be big.
Well, that's amazing. Is this something you guys end up doing, or are you thinking about doing annually? Have you done this before? Or is this the first time you guys are putting this together?
So this is City View's third time doing this. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. And it'll be a busy month because my state pageant is just 5 days before that. So I'm going to be doing a lot of hopping around all of North Carolina. But all of, the proceeds are to benefit, the City View News Fund to help expand our coverage area because they definitely believe that people, have a right to know what's going on without having to pay for it or without an article limit. So many links you'll click on and it says, well, you have to subscribe. It's just $1 a day. That's how it starts. And City View doesn't do that.
Well, I hope the weather fans out for you guys, and hopefully end up being much more successful third year round, and hopefully you guys keep going because the more that people spread the word out, as we know through social media, or just the old fashioned way was when you tell a friend who tells a friend tells somebody else. Hopefully, it'll continue growing, and you guys can keep adding more events. So it sounds for me, it sounds pretty good, at least in my own opinion. I think it'd be a fun night out. With the weather, it does make a difference here in Florida, as we experienced in January. Probably a lot cooler than usual weather, but today, no complaints. We got about to 85 degrees, so it was nice. And remainder in the downside is I'm about to go into the freezing weather. So right when it gets warm here, I'm about to take a ride up to Indiana, where it's just going to be so nice. But the fun part will be that I'll get to see all the team market owners from the TBL. So I'll get to see Ken for the first time in person after being on the show, and I'll make sure I'll let him know, obviously, the great job you do for Fayetteville. And I'm quite sure as well the fans will be really excited to meet you. So are you going to be, I'm assuming, at the first home game opener, or how are you guys in it working out?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I plan on being at all of the home games. I think there might have been one or two that I have scheduling conflicts with, some charities that I'm doing some work with. But I plan on being at all of the home games. I'm definitely going to be at the home opener on March 10th. They also are doing training camp coming up very soon. They're doing it February 13th through 17th over at the Crown Arena. And they've even invited the public to come out and watch from 5 to 7 p.m. on those nights, which I think is super, super awesome. Their biggest focus is community. The Stingers, they say it's community is their number one asset. And without the community, we're nothing. And before I moved here, I heard a lot of negative things about, Fayetteville. I've heard a lot of scary things about Fayetteville, Fort Bragg area, but, people tend to fixate on the bad, and the community is so strong here, and I'm excited to have, another team to bring the community together.
Well, I will tell you before we wrap up here. So, as you know, it's had different names. When I end up joining, so I graduated high school, so everybody knows here the age, but graduated high school when I was in '88. So, I ended up joining the military right after that. Ended up in Vietnam and had no idea why in the world they called it Vietnam. And at that time, uh, oh boy, I have to word this very carefully because of the first situation I ran into. So there was a store. Apparently, I was only 2 miles away from Fort Bragg, and so I stopped by the store, and I'm almost certain it was called 10,000 items and more. So when I walked in, mind you, I was in my Class A uniform because I had to fly home from Fort Benning, just get out of jump school, end up going home, picking up my Camaro, end up driving all the way down. So I get there, and the guy says, "Can I help you?" I said, "Yes, I'm just trying to see if I'm in the right direction going to Fort Bragg." And the guy didn't say a word. So I said, "All right." I said, "Maybe he didn't hear me." I said, "Oh, you know what? Maybe I have to go grab some soda." So I go out in the freezer. I come back. I put up on the counter. So when I put up on the counter, they said, "I'm sorry. I'm trying to get to Fort Bragg. I just want to know because I saw the sign a couple miles back, but apparently it got lost somewhere else." So another guy comes from the back room with a weapon in his hand, and it has a choice word, which I won't repeat here on the air. And he says, "I don't speak," and he threw out the choice word. And I said, "I'm sorry. Uh, Nor am I dumb and nor ignorant, but all I want is just directions how to get to Fort Bragg." That was my introduction to Vietnam. The only in first and only time that I had to deal with something like that. Because any other time that we went into town or anything else, most times everybody was good. Didn't have an issue anywhere else, but I can understand why in the world it was called like that. Only other time that I would say, even though I was in the military, but I had no idea what was about to happen, go up to Rockingham to go see Dale and her race. And so when you go to Rockingham, very small town, and I'm cutting through this one parking lot, and the other guys I was with, that was their third time up there. But they decided to be funny and told me, "Oh, look over there." So when I looked to my left, they ended up taking off because they knew I had to go through a crowd of folks here. So I go through the middle, and then one guy looks at me and goes, "Are you lost?" And I thought, "Oh boy, here comes the store situation all over again." So I said, "Well, no, I'm not lost. Apparently my friend decided to leave me here." He said, "You know why I leave you here?" I said, "No." I said, "Because we only have Dale and our fans here." So I quickly lift up the shirt that I had under, and the guy goes, "Oh, you're a Dale Earnhardt fan? Come here." Grabs him by my neck, and I swear it was like being hugged, like hugged by Dale Earnhardt, because the tightest squeeze I ever felt. But the nice part, the flip side of the story was, I ended up eating basically for free the entire race, had whatever drinks I wanted to have, and had a blast. And mind you, the Rockingham was much smaller than what Fayetteville is. So I'm glad that it's all changed because Lord knows that first experience wasn't the best for me. But I never had a problem in Charlotte, Raleigh, or anywhere else. It was for whatever reason. It was Vietnam. So I'm glad things have changed. I'm dying to see it because it's been years since I've been there. Matter of fact, the last time I was in Fayetteville was in '97 when I got out. So it's been a while. So I'm glad things have changed.
Yeah, and I mean, the Fayetteville community is great. I they're so supportive of each other. They're so supportive of everyone. They're very supportive of the military community. And, there are a lot of military bases where they don't have the support from their local community. Hawaii, for instance, they don't have the support. When you're stationed out there, they're not super jazzed that the military is out there. But, thinking about talking about crime or, it's anywhere. It's not just Fayetteville. It's anywhere. And it's such a widespread issue right now. On Saturday, I'm actually going to a sneaker ball to help hopefully bring awareness and stop this gun violence pandemic that we're dealing with, because it's terrible. It seems like something new every 10 seconds, and it has to be tackled.
Well, I just hope that things continue to get better. I know for a lot of people when it comes to mental health, we also hope that things continue to evolve. People take the time to listen to somebody. I say it all the time. Sometimes you don't know that, even though yes, we do see people on the side of the road sometimes, or even just people walking down the street, and they might just reach out to you and say, "Hey, do you have a minute?" You can tell the difference with sometimes between certain people, but sometimes you just don't know. You could be inside of a Starbucks and someone can just say, "Hey, could I bother you?" Even though you may be in a rush somewhere, but that 1 minute to that person for that moment could mean the difference between life and death. It could be between a good day and a bad day. It could have just had a crazy experience. And mental health is something which I'm pretty sure with you guys as well when it comes to the pageants. The same way when it is with the TBL and everybody looks out for each other's mental health. It is probably, I want to say, the number one thing right now in our society, because we hope that people reach out and hear one another. A lot of times things work, and we always hear what at the very end. In the news, they always say that that person had an issue and no one wanted to listen, and now that person is gone. So we just hope as the pandemic starts to kind of go away and people start coming back to that normalcy, I just hope that the mental health for a lot of people tend to be a lot better. So I don't know if you have the opportunity of working with with anyone or listening to anyone that has any kind of mental health as far as like issues. But if you do, thank you because it's much appreciated.
I have extensive experience in my family. It's still pretty close to home, but there have been, there was one extreme tragedy where someone in my family, they couldn't take it. And I've seen what can happen when people feel like they don't have anyone. And, we all have our humanity in common. Talk to one another. It's so simple to talk to other people. We all have our humanity in common. There is not a single person I think I've ever encountered who I have not been able to carry a conversation on with. And, talking to one another, supporting each other, because, bringing other people down, I feel like that's such a big thing right now in society, and especially in schools, and making someone else look bad doesn't make you look any better. It just
Right.
makes you look like a jerk. And, I've told my kids my 2 rules are, you don't lie to me ever, ever, and you're kind to everyone you meet, because, there's plenty of actresses, there's plenty of millionaires, there's plenty of attorneys, but there are not enough genuinely kind people in this world. So I want to make sure that my kids are always kind to one another. They recognize when it looks like someone at school might be having a hard time at home or be feeling left out, and be able to act on that and take action before a tragedy can happen.
Well, I'm glad you're teaching your kids the right things to do because unfortunately, we see there is a lot of bullying and it's a shame. Again, schools are not the same that when we went to school before. I mean, the funniest and the silliest fight that I ever saw, and it wasn't even a fight. And this is when you're going way back. So in my junior year, guy just bought a brand new pair of Stingers, and unfortunately, another guy just kind of skipped over, didn't mean to do it intentionally, and put a little scuff mark on there. Became this huge ordeal. They went out front. Everybody was supposed to fight and everything else. What ended up happening? They didn't. Why? Because they both looked at each other and eventually ended up laughing about it. Like, why am I getting so frustrated or something? And the guy goes, look, and he rubbed it right off. He goes, it was just so dumb. And they became friends. It seems like a corny story to some people, but what ended up happening was they averted something that could have been a stupid catastrophe over something so simple and so dumb. Unfortunately, today we don't see that. Everybody wants to make a mountain out of a molehill. I mean, you got to take life just a little more easy. We've all been through bad relationships. Lord knows I went through one. Thank God I'm not, in that situation where I was beforehand. But unfortunately, you live, you learn, and you hope to get better from it. So I just hope that your kids, as they continue to grow up and they see what you do for them and how you teach them the same way with your family and the involvement in the same way with your husband, that they understand that, there's a reason why you have to be kind in this world today and not to be just intimidated by anyone, because whatever you want in this world, you're going to work hard for it. And don't let anyone just hand something to you, because if they hand it to you, there might be a reason why they're handing it to you. And sometimes it's not the best reasons. So thank you for what you do as a parent. Thank you for your family, just, being with them, being a part of their lives, because it's very important. My own kids, I make sure that I try to do the best for them so they understand that, they have to do things the right way. And my son, who lives right in that Charlotte area, he went through his little situation, but he learned, he grew from it, and now he's a bright young man. More tattoos, I have zero. More tattoos than I ever imagined, but a great individual. So I'm just glad that they're all doing well and that they're all doing good. So I appreciate you and the time. I thank you for what you do. I can't imagine. I thank you for what you do. And if there's anything else you want to share here as we're closing out, I do appreciate it.
I don't know if I have anything really. I mean, I am so happy that you reached out. It was great to chat with you. Really just so excited for the Stingers. They've got the draft this weekend, and then training camp starts, then the season's going to start, and it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really excited to see what they do, what kind of talent they bring. I, should probably not have talked so openly about my hatred of Duke, since that's where our head coach played. But, very excited about that. Really excited to see, IU hang a banner this year, because they're going to. I just know it. They're going to.
That's right. Well, listen, Katie, thank you so much again. I do appreciate it. Again, congratulations being also Mrs. Fayetteville International 2023. And for everyone else, if you guys want to check out these Fayetteville Stingers, just like any other team here in the TBL, the other 49 teams, please subscribe to TBL TV so you don't miss a game, whether it be in home or away. You guys should check it out. You can also go to the basketballleague.net, and you can click on the link from there to TBL TV. So, Katie, thank you once again. For everyone that tuned in today, I appreciate it. Tampa Joe's will be the place to be here in about 2 weeks for the Eagles Super Bowl matchup. So we do appreciate everyone who tuned in tonight. We hope everyone has a great evening, and we'll see you the next time.